Welcome back to Tankers Fantasy Football here. Today talking about the NFC East. So we got the Redskins, the Giants,
the Cowboys, the Eagles.
First, let's kick it off with some headlines here.
We got those headlines. Hopefully the bear doesn't drop the headlines this time. We got Carlos Williams was recently released. Now, on our AFC East podcast, you heard us coming out here and say Carlos Williams is a bum. Well, folks, this bum is who we thought he was. And they didn't let him off the hook. He's out of town, and he might not find a job for a while. So at this point, Carlos Williams is undraftable.
I wouldn't touch him. Another headline, Josh Gordon is now working with first-team reps out there.
Doing first-team reps? Joe Hayden says he looks just as good as he used to? Now, I gotta take the Joe Hayden thing with a little grain of salt, 'cause this is player speak, which is maybe even worse than coach speak. So, it is what it is, but it's better than he looks crappy. It's better than he looks crappy, right?
Again, if you're going to draft him, you're going to have to wait 4 weeks anyway to see him. He's being drafted somewhere 5th, 6th round.
Mainly early 6th, but I've seen him go late 7th. I've seen him go early 8th. So anywhere, it's just Matt. He's fluctuating more than anybody because of his upside. Some people love him. Some people hate him. So anywhere from early 6th to early 8th, I think you can get in there. If you can get him in that early 8th and get him in maybe that first bench spot on your team, I think that's ideal. Completely ideal.
All right. NFC East, studs.
Leading it off with Dez Bryant in the stud category. And I think the only thing holding old Desi boy back is Tony Romo's collarbones.
Dez Bryant might be the only first rounder where I'm not only concerned about his health, but the health of another person on his team. Because I know Dak Prescott's out doing his thing in preseason.
The preseason darling. Who knows if that's the real score. But, I'm not so concerned about Dez's health. other than last year, he was pretty, he goes out there and he toughs it out. He gets it done. But Romo? I don't know. If Romo plays 16 games, what's that? And what's the over-under on how many games Romo plays? I'm putting it at 8 or 9? If he plays 16, I don't think, if anybody can break into those top 3 wide receivers that are drafted outside of him, I think it's Dez Bryant. He's going to get them touchdowns. He's he's a target machine. Who else is Tony Romo throwing it to, for crying out loud?
You saw when he went down last year, they just had absolutely no one in that offensive passing game.
Oh, it was a barren wasteland. Just barren. We're talking about Terrence Williams and Cole Beasley's. Oh my goodness. And with DeMarco Murray out of town, they were just running. McFadden did okay, but if you're talking about Matt Castle and Darren McFadden, that's not winning football games in any aspect.
And for anyone saying that Ezekiel Elliott might hurt his stock, I'm not buying it. If anything, I think it helps his stock. Because now, people might be creeping up in the box there. And before you know it, you got 60-yard touchdown, Dez Bryant.
I don't think Dez Bryant's one of those guys that you can double cover him, and I don't think that matters. I think he's that good of a player. If Tony Romo is playing football the whole year, Dez Bryant is top 5 wide receiver easy. He can be, if anybody's going to break in and score more points than Odell Beckham Jr. or Julio Jones, I think it's Dez Bryant.
I think even without Romo, if he plays the full season, his floor is double-digit touchdowns. I think he's got 10 touchdowns in the bag if he's out there playing.
Yeah, even without Romo, he's probably low-end wide receiver 1, but, that makes his first-round value a little bit overpriced, but, he's still, even without Romo, he's still an easy mid-second-round talent return for sure.
All right, next stud. Let's go to another receiver here.
We got Odell Beckham Jr. And the only real problem with this guy is his attitude. I mean, the thing is, how many teams did he cost the fantasy Super Bowl last year by getting in a fight with Josh Norman in Week 15 and getting suspended for Week 16? I mean, no matter how good of a player he is, that's leaving a real bad taste in your mouth out there for sure.
And you got to think about Josh Norman now signing with the Redskins. They're going to see each other twice a year. And you know there's bad blood there. If he can just keep his head on him, you look at his numbers, he's looking at Calvin Johnson type start to his career here.
He had 25 catches in his first 2 years in the NFL. The only player with more than that is Randy Moss. Randy Moss, that's some elite company right there. You and Randy Moss? Jerry, and not even the great GOAT, Jerry Rice, even had more touchdowns than that in his first 2 years.
And last year, it was 12 or 13 touchdowns. His next best receiver to him was Reuben Randall, taking coverage off of him. This year, we're going to talk about Shepard a little later, but I think Odell could have another monstrous year, maybe even better than his first or second year.
It's crazy. He had 6 straight games with 100 yards or more, and in that span, he scored 8 touchdowns, which isn't that great, but 8 touchdowns in 6 games, that's pretty wonderful. That's Doug Baldwin madness.
If you bring that over, that's saying this guy's on pace for 20 touchdowns. And then you're talking, again, a Randy Moss type of guy.
Oh, I think you can pencil him in for 11 or 12 touchdowns right now. I'm not even thinking about it.
I think right now, you're looking at his floor. He's going to catch 90 balls. He's going to get
1,400 yards easy.
And then again, along with Dez, I see them both having at least 10 touchdowns.
That's a floor, people. That's the best. That's one of the best floors I've ever heard.
If he had 11 touchdowns this year, he would be considered a down year for him.
Down year with 11 touchdowns. That's below 11 touchdowns is below his season average. That's incredible.
He's just on a whole nother level when it comes to these young guys.
Target monster, red zone machine, and like we said, the only thing holding him back from being the most incredible edible thing you ever did see was his attitude. He's got a little Steve Smith in him. People start talking crap, he just can't turn the other way. He's got to get in their face, which is bad. But I think if he can harness that and get that under control, there's nothing stopping him. Nothing.
I think PPR or standard, he's at worst a top 3 pick.
Oh, yeah, top 3. It depends if you like him or I personally like Julio a little bit better. Like in Brown, Julio, and then Odell. But Julio and him are basically interchangeable in a lot of people's ranks. Well, we got another super stud coming out of the East. We got Jordan Reed. Incredible. Week 7. What am I saying? He got 96 balls and he missed 2 games. As a tight end, that's ridiculous. He caught more passes than Gronk, and I know Gronk missed times too, but...
And even 12 touchdowns last year for missing 2 games.
He came back week 7 after he missed 2 games. Yeah, and he had 11 catches, 72 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's crazy. He had 5 games last year. 5 games last year where he scored 27 points or more in PPR. That's elite.
This is a guy that you're getting a good 2, maybe 2.5 rounds later than Gronkowski. And if you put his numbers up over a 16-game span...
there's no reason that Jordan Reed can't finish the top 1 tight end in fantasy football. Gronk's got his injury problems too. He's crazy. He had 10. Talk about consistency. He had 10 games last year out of the 14 games in which he played that he scored 14 fantasy points or more for you in PPR.
And in so many times when tight end is a position that I feel like it's feast or famine. Your guy's either going to do it or he's not. This is as sexy of a consistent tight end as there is in the league.
Kirk Cousins absolutely loves it.
The Redskins' offense runs through Jordan Reed.
Yeah, you got the New England Patriots offense runs through Gronk. And the best receiver in Carolina is probably Greg Olsen. But as far as, teams winning or losing without this player performing, it's Jordan Reed. I mean, I think the tide of the Redskins goes more with Jordan Reed than it does with Gronk or with Greg Olsen. I think the Redskins absolutely need Jordan Reed to do anything.
And again, the value at the 4th round position, I don't think it would surprise anyone if he ends up being the number 1 tight end. You look at his numbers last year.
I love Gronk, and I really do. But if you're getting this guy 2.5 rounds later,
it's just almost stupid to see these stats. Missing 2 games, catching that many balls, over 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns.
I mean, I'm talking about. I know it's not you're not at the same draft position here, but if you're talking early 2nd to mid to late 4th in difference, I mean, I'm talking about drafting this guy over the man beast. That's insane. I think when the return value though from 2.5 rounds later is just so great. You can sew up your awesome wide receiver 2 in the 2nd round, and then you get a guy that might even outproduce Gronk 2.5 rounds later. I don't see how that can't be awesome.
Because the main thing with Gronk, I love Gronk, but I mean, if you want him, you're gonna have to
pay the piper. You gotta pay the piper.
You're gonna have to get him. I mean, he's going anywhere mid to late 1st round pick. So
everybody knows Rob Gronkowski. Your great aunt knows Rob Gronkowski.
You're sacrificing a legit top end receiver when if you're getting Jordan Reed, you can get a legit top end. You could get 2 legit top end receivers. If you're at the back end, you can get a Robinson and even a Marshall or a Dez.
And you take your RB3 in the 3rd? I mean, you take your RB1 in the 3rd? And then you're like, best talent available in the 4th? I mean, I've done a lot of mocks, and the best talent available in the mid-4th is usually clearly Jordan Reed. It's crazy. I mean, if you don't take Gronk, I don't even like taking tight ends until like the 7th or 8th. But Jordan Reed in the mid to late 4th? That's bargain bin deluxe.
Jordan Reed, the thing is, he's getting your catches. The guy is...
He's not totally touchdown dependent. He's getting those too.
He's right about the century mark last year for catches and 1,000 yards. This is a guy who's putting receiver production in as your tight end spot.
Only start 1 tight end leagues. You got the edge on him against these guys you're playing against that don't own Gronk, and the other people in your league that don't own Gronk. I mean, you're looking at scoring anywhere from 5 to 15 more points than these people from the tight end position every given week.
All right, what do we got next here?
We're moving on to the bums. We're moving on to them bums. All right, here we go. Bum time. Now let's lead off the old bum dums. Let's lead them off with my boy Terrence Williams. Now last year, I drafted Terrence Williams late. I wasn't even a Dez owner, but I drafted Terrence Williams late. Dez goes down week 1. They're talking about him missing anywhere from what?
And you're thinking, they're talking
like missing 8 to 10 weeks.
And you're thinking,
I just got paid. I just got scooped up on a wide receiver 2 in fantasy football for the next 8 to 10 weeks, and I drafted him in the Bufu, Egypt. And then he came out the next week, and you're like, man, I did. He scored me 18.4. And I'm feeling pretty good about this. But then, the cliff. You started in week 3. You went out there and got you a big old 0. Then, he had 8 weeks after that. 8 weeks after that. And this isn't even including the 0. He had 8 weeks after that where he scored under 8.3. And PPR. This isn't standard. This is PPR. That's garbage. And his best week was 25.3. But that was week 7 after everybody was done playing fantasy football. So that doesn't even matter.
Stating the obvious, awful year last year. This year, I don't even think has the opportunity to get better.
9 weeks. 9 weeks, including the 0, with 8.3 points or fewer in fantasy football PPR.
And the majority of that time being the number 1 receiving option.
I mean, they gave him the ball to run with it, and he the bed. He woke up covered in himself. They were like, here you go, bro. Dez is hurt. Be our boy. Didn't happen. I'm done with him. He's undraftable in my eyes. Completely undraftable. Well, let's move on to the next bum.
All right.
We got Jordan Matthews.
Now, if you're looking at this guy, you're saying Jordan Matthews? How is this guy a bum? Look at these numbers that we're dishing out here.
85 catches last year for 997 yards and 8 touchdowns. And you're like, but worse face, how is this guy a bum?
First 2 weeks, he gives me 20 points apiece.
20 points. He comes out there week 1. He gets you, what does he get you? He gets you 10 catches for 100 yards week 1. Next week, 80 yards and a touchdown. You're like, oh man, yeah, he is who I thought he was. And this is great for my fantasy football team. And then it just gets so bad. After week 2, he had 5 games in which he scored 10.9 or fewer. And most of those games were, only game over 10 was the 10.9.
4 of the 5 games, single digits.
Single digits. But then, after you've lost faith in him, after you've given up hope because he's done so bad the last 5 weeks, he goes out there and he hits you with a 9 for 130 and a touchdown. He scores you 28 fantasy points, and you know he's on your bench, and that gets you all fired up. You're like,
he's back.
He's back. I should have played him. What was I thinking? And then you go out there and you run him out there, but then the next 2 weeks, he gives you back-to-back 5 burgers. And then at this point, you've totally sailed ship on this bum.
And there is a bye week in there, too. So if you're looking at that, what's that, 8 of 9 weeks where he's less than 11 points.
After week 2, he had 6 weeks where it was less than 11 points. You'd given up on. No way you had him in there for the 28-point game. And if you did, you lost a bunch of games on the way there.
I think
that sounds like the worst 85 for 1,008 touchdown season I ever heard of.
And you think that in the 8 touchdowns, I mean, you think that's pretty respectable. 2 of these touchdowns came in the last week of the season where the fantasy playoffs were over. Everyone went home. Everyone's gone. And he gives you his only multi-touchdown game of the season.
Another game which he did excellent that you couldn't play him in. And that's why he's the best bum you ever heard. 85 for 1,008, but you didn't see any of it. Besides week 1 and 2, you didn't see any of it.
He got you 40 points all year in your roster.
Oh, it was terrible. Absolutely terrible. All right, where are we going? Hitting him on some risers. Are we going on the risers?
All right, give him the arrows.
Giving them them risers.
Possibly the hottest stock going right now. Ezekiel Elliott, number 4 overall pick in the NFL draft, has now found his way flirting with number 4 overall in fantasy. He's been anywhere in the first round.
He has been all over the first round. I've seen him after they came out with that. He got hurt. He hurt his hammy in practice. He started going more like early second, mid second, but he's back up on there in the late first right now. And I mean, I don't see how any way you can draft a rookie running back. I know he plays for the best offensive line in football, but this is still a rookie running back. You're getting first round. Like this is if it was in the 3rd round, I'd be all in, but it isn't.
Last rookie running back to go in the first round of fantasy, Ryan Matthews.
Ryan Matthews, I mean, that didn't pan out. I know Elliott, and he's probably going to go out there, and he's going to do good, but if people have been drafting him over Adrian Peterson, and I mean, if you're going to put like money on who's going to have more rushing yards this season, it's got to be Adrian Peterson every day of the week, and if it's not, you're completely out of your mind.
Elliott is a guy easily could be a top 3 back. He could be the number 1 back in fantasy. We don't know, but
I don't think it's worth paying that price to find out.
If you're spending a first rounder, you don't want to throw a flyer at a guy in the first round. You have to expect.
You need guaranteed. I like to draft guarantees in the 1st and 2nd round minimum. Maybe even slow up the 3rd round with another guarantee.
Because you're taking the ceiling off these guys if you're drafting him.
I don't start taking flyers until at least the 5th or 6th round, and that's dudes I feel really good about. I mean, Elliott, a rookie running back in the 1st? That's as unsavory as it gets in my mind. Completely insane.
I mean, let's be honest. Darren McFadden rushed for 1,000 yards behind that offensive line last year. It can happen, people.
Oh, it can happen.
The Ezekiel Elliott
But when you
show
draft
can
him in the
happen.
1st, you're saying it's definitely gonna happen. And I don't know if I'm up
And
on
at that point, you don't gain anything out of it.
You're drafting the value out of him. Take him in the 1st like that, you're taking all of his value out of him. Now he must do what you think he's gonna do, or he's not worth.
And if he doesn't, your team could be looking rough. Because you're passing on your Gronkowskis, your Allen Robinsons.
Even your Adrian Petersons, who I'm not even that up on this year. But if you can't take Elliott, if you're in a I know Dynasty, but if you're in a redraft, you cannot take Adrian Peterson over Ezekiel Elliott.
AP is consistently, boringly great of a fantasy running back as there is out there.
That is. And who else we got in the risers? We got, Sterling Shepard out there? Word out of camp
is the talk of town in New York at camp.
Coaches said, we got to cover Odell Beckham Jr. better, and he looked over, and it was Sterling Shepard he was talking about. I know, eyes can play tricks on you, but that's a pretty high talk of a rookie wide receiver here.
This is a guy, he's going to be the second best option on this team, and the first best option is always going to be getting doubled. Odell is going to see all this coverage, and Shepard is going to have a heyday out there.
He's going to see single coverage from every team's second best cover corner every single week. And if he can parlay that,
I think he's got 1,000-yard season as a rookie.
I don't see any reason why he can't be the number 1 rookie wide receiver this year. I think the writing's on the wall.
I loved so many of these rookie receivers and hated almost every single one where they ended up at, except for this guy.
Sterling Shepard, I think I'd put money on right now. He's the number 1 rookie wide receiver. I think he's got a higher ceiling than anybody else. I think he can go out there. He might be able to get you 7 or 8 touchdowns even.
All right, what do you think? Over or under 70 catches?
I'll probably take the under, but I'm not saying he can't do it. But I'd probably take the under. I'd probably go 60-40 on over 70 catches. I'd say 60% he doesn't. He probably won't do that. But there's no reason why he can't.
You think 1,000 yards is in him as a rookie?
I think that's his absolute ceiling. I think 70 for 1,000, 7 or 8 touchdowns is absolute ceiling.
Eli's got to get his 4,000 yards from someone.
Beckham's gonna get his, people. There's only so much cheese to go around. 70 for 1,000, 7 or 8 touchdowns. That's great. That's great wide receiver 2 on an NFL football team numbers.
If you're looking at the other rookie receivers that were drafted, Treadwell, you gotta hate the scenario he's in.
His quarterback doesn't even throw for 200 yards a game. How is this guy supposed to do it?
And then you look at possibly the most talented and best receiver, Corey Coleman. He's got RG3 out there.
He went to the desert wasteland of the Cleveland Browns.
Especially with Josh Gordon potentially coming back after week 4.
Oh, that rained on his fantasy football parade. He was getting toted around like people were drafting him as a flex player. And then Josh Gordon news came back, and his average draft position just plummeted. He's plummeted. He's drafted as a bench player now, easy. What we got here? Ryan Matthews, the only reason why he's a riser is because his average draft position is going up. I'm not buying into this. Murray left town. But, Ryan Matthews, that team is bad, and I think his health concerns are bad, and I think he might be bad.
His draft position's going up, but I do not see his production going up at all. Besides, they're going to be awful team. I feel like offensively, they are going to be a very, very bad team.
He flashed. I mean, he watches highlights and he flashed some speed and he flashed some
the
ability
first
last year.
touchdown of the preseason.
I mean, if you're desperate, I mean, as far as like, if this guy does stay healthy and the Grimlap system aligns out there, I mean, I guess he could be your boy, but I'm not buying into it in his early 5th, mid-5th draft position.
And the guy just can't stay healthy.
No. He's got the Romo collarbone. Him and Romo are the collarbone brothers.
There's already been talks that Sproles is the best running back in this backfield. Darren Sproles.
I mean, Darren Sproles is not going to carry footballs. I mean, Darren Sproles is going to catch passes. Darren Sproles is not going to carry footballs.
Is he still in the league at this point?
Darren Sproles is spry. I mean, Darren Sproles is like a good late round flyer, I guess, if you really don't buy into Matthews and you think Ryan Matthews is going to get hurt. I mean, Ryan Matthews goes down. Darren Sproles isn't going to start getting 15 carries. Darren Sproles ain't going to get any carries. Darren Sproles is a PPR guy. I mean, what's his most carries in his career? Like 80 in a season?
Yeah,
it's very low.
I'm sure it was when it was in San Diego.
Nah, I think it was New Orleans when he was really in his peak, when people were toting him around. He was like Darren Sproles was like a late second, early third pick when he was riding high out there. But I think that time's gone. I think the Eagles are a bloody mess.
Yeah, Ryan Matthews. I mean, you look at the guys going around him. I mean, he's around kind of the Gio Bernard, the Matt Jones, the J Stews. I feel like that's like the wasteland area of running backs. the 5th round. I'm going to take a Jeremy Hill in the 6th, wait on him, and I'm going to feel confident with him over every single guy I just said in the 5th round.
I'd even go as far as to pass over all those dudes and wait till the 7th and get my boy Rashad Jennings. I mean, I think Rashad Jennings is going to have a better year than any of those guys we just said, besides possibly Jeremy Hill.
I mean, he's going around Danny Woodhead, and he's another guy I think stock it's fluctuating so much just depending on what Melvin Gordon can do. That 5th round price, he could come at you with 15th round production by the end of the year.
It could easily flip the script on you, and next thing you know, they're unreliable and they're not even involved very heavily anymore. All right, let's go move on to the fallers. Who we got out there? We got Matt Jones. Now, I mean, people were up, but Matt Jones was a riser at the beginning of the offseason with Alfred Morris leaving town and, this and that. They said the offensive line was getting a little better. But the guy averaged 3 yards a carry last year. And he only had one game with 100 yards. And his next highest, you know what his next highest was out there? 62 yards.
He had 3 touchdowns all year. And 2 of them came in the same game, which was the game where he went over 100.
He really had one good game, and that was it. And now I realize if this guy is going to get a workload, I mean, if he's going to touch the ball 250, 300 times, which I don't know. That's a pipe dream in my eyes. But if he does that, I don't think any way he doesn't return running back 2 value at his 5th round average draft position. But I mean, that's a pipe dream.
But you still, 3.4 yards a carry last year.
I think the Redskins are all in on a passing team. I don't think their defense is very well. The defense is very good. I think they're going to be in a lot of shootouts and a lot of comeback situations. So it's going to negate anything Matt Jones could or would have done.
And Thompson, the backup there, he took the majority of the catches away from Matt Jones last year. So when they're down, I don't even see Matt Jones being on the field that much.
That's a problem if you're playing for the Washington Redskins.
And injured in camp.
Hey, but you heard his shoulder in the preseason the other day. They said Gruden came out and said it's not going to be a very long injury. But, injuries that dudes that are on the suspect list is never a good thing.
Some more fallers here. We're going to continue on with the backs. It's the backs that were in Dallas before Elliott came to town.
Yeah, McFadden, who I think is falling the farthest because of Elliott and Morris.
But they signed Morris in the offseason. You're thinking, maybe this guy.
That tanked McFadden's value already. And then they brought in Elliott at 4th overall. I think it just completely obliterated anything that McFadden had to
You're
offer.
thinking Morris, I mean, his first 2 years, over 1,000 yards. I mean, he could get you some touchdowns. You know, I mean, obviously last year was awful for him. But behind that offensive line, who knows? Get Morris cheap, could do something.
Oh, if you can get, I mean, you're getting Morris, like, at bargain bin value. Like, if you go out there.
He's not even, like, being drafted in
No.
most leagues.
I mean, he's looked good this preseason. And if the Grimlap system doesn't align for Elliott and McFadden turns into the bum he was previously, I mean, Alfred Morris could be that late season savior for a lot of these for your fantasy football team. I really believe. I mean, if you can get him at dirt cheap and just hang, if you got a deep bench and you can just hang on to the likes of Alfred Morris.
If Elliott just doesn't work, or if he gets hurt, behind that offensive line, Morris can give you 100 yards a game, maybe throw in a touchdown or so, get you anywhere between 15 and 20 in that RB2 spot.
I mean, he's not shiny and glistening, and he's a boring. But if he's going to be the starting running back behind the Dallas Cowboys offensive line at any point this season,
I think anytime you're back behind the offensive line of Dallas, you have at least chance.
I mean, I think
respectful.
He could end up winning you fantasy leagues if he ends up being the feature back come late season for the Dallas Cowboys. There's no reason. I mean, if Darren McFadden can do it, I don't think there's any reason to believe that Alfred Morris can't do it.
All right, another faller. What do you think?
The entire Redskin receiving core that isn't Jordan Reed.
You look at these guys. You got Jackson. I mean, you know,
He's a one-trick pony.
He wasn't healthy last year, but still, he relies so heavily on that deep ball that it's a feast or famine week to week basis.
He's only good in best ball leagues, as far as I'm concerned. That's his only value. If you're in a best ball league, that's his only reason why you should ever draft him.
And there's so many other receivers fighting to get in there. I mean, you take a look at Garcon.
He's supposedly the possession receiver, but you got Jordan Reed out there vacuuming up 96 balls, so it sounds like his days as a possession receiver are bye-bye.
You got Garcon, Jackson. They brought in Doxson, who I loved, again, as a rookie, but I don't like the situation he's going into.
His college highlights were there for Doxson, and the beginning of the offseason, they were talking about he was going to be red zone schemed. He was going to be a red zone threat. But now they're talking about pup list. And I don't even think he's even practiced that much before he got hurt in training camp. So this is a guy basically undraftable at this point.
Yeah, besides Jordan Reed, I don't think there's any guy that I want to pay up at the receiving position. There's so much. Redskins rely so heavily.
I don't even think they're worth taking flyers on. I think they're just bums.
They rely so heavily going through Jordan Reed. I mean, like we've already said, the guy almost caught 100 balls as a tight end, missing 2 games.
I mean, that's the number one weapon, people. None of these other dudes, I wouldn't even roster any of them. Their ceilings are just not existent. I mean, their floors are bottom level. I don't think it's worth it. I think I'd rather just throw a dart at a dude I thought had great upside than even pick one of these middling bums.
All right. Well, after all those dudes, let's talk at least some value here. What's some guys that you don't have to pay up for, but they can give you a little something here?
A value. Let's straighten your head there, bud. There we go. Nice. You straighten yourself up there. And I think the quarterbacks out of the NFC East give you value. I mean, Cousins, after the "you like that" game.
You like that? You like that?
He had 5 games in which he had 3 touchdowns or more. And in 3 of those 5 games, he had 4 touchdowns.
And
that's production.
And these were coming in clutch. These were postseason. Some of them were even Super Bowl matchups in your fantasy leagues. And this guy that you're picking up off of waiver wires is throwing 300 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns for you.
Like I said, I think the Redskins are going to be playing catch-up a lot. I think they're going to be in a lot of shootouts. So that means even if he's not that great, he's going to have the attempts to rule the world.
And he's just not getting respected in a lot of these drafts.
Oh, no. He's not even getting drafted as, like, what, a top 15 guy.
He's around the 10th, 11th round.
I mean, that's where people are drafting their backup quarterbacks. And I'm talking about this guy might be decent enough. I mean, if you're looking to wait.
If you're really waiting, I have no problem having him be your low-end QB1. He'll at least, they're at least going to throw the ball.
I mean, you look at guys like Kirk Cousins, you look at Tyrod Taylor, you look at Ryan Fitzpatrick. And you look at these guys and you think, who's got the highest ceiling? I think it's Kirk Cousins. I mean,
Over Fitzpatrick?
I think Fitzpatrick's got the highest floor by far. But I think as far as, like, ceiling goes and, like, ability to break out games, that actually the reason why you won that week in fantasy football, I think it's Kirk Cousins.
Because he is a guy he can get you points in bunches. I mean, this guy can just go out on any given week, give you 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. And
I mean, if you're drafting in the
10th or 11th, that is saving you.
I mean, this guy you drafted in the 11th could help you win any given week. I mean, if he's dropping a 3 for 3 out there, I mean, in the 11th round, I'm all in.
I love it. And another quarterback I love, Eli Manning. I mean, this is a guy, since Odell came into the team there, he's thrown no worse than 4,400 yards.
With 300 touchdowns to boot along with it.
Yeah,
30 touchdowns. 30. I'm getting crazy. Madden numbers over here.
But since Odell, every single year has been at least, I know it's only 2 years, but I'm expecting the same thing. At least 4,400.
I don't think Odell's getting any worse.
At least 4,400 yards and at least 30 touchdowns. This is mid QB1 stats we're talking about. He was second.
Tied for second with Bortles in passing touchdowns.
35. Who knew that? That's the quietest.
I didn't know that until we looked it up.
That's the quietest great season that I've heard in a while.
Whispers from the dark, Eli Manning. I mean,
and he's another guy.
He's getting drafted around what? He's getting drafted around the same spot.
He's
maybe a little touch
he's
earlier.
Somewhere 9th, 10th, 8th. I mean, anywhere between 8 and 10 range. But this is a guy. He could be top end QB1.
I mean, he could. And Eli Manning. I mean, I think you can write him down as top 10 this year.
I think his
weapons got better, which they brought in Sterling Shepard, and I don't see any reason why he can't do at least what he did with the 44 and the 35. And that's great numbers.
I think his floor again is, somewhere between low to mid 4,000s and 30 touchdowns.
Yeah, I think you can write him down for at least 4,030. I mean, Odell might even catch 15 touchdowns. So that's half that 30 right there.
And he's another guy that he can win you leagues because you're waiting so far. You're waiting till the 9th round or so to get a legitimate QB1. You're passing on, 4th, 5th when you're going to get like a Luck or Wilson when you can get another stud.
Eli Manning can go out there and outscore Blake Bortles. Of course he can. Why can't he? Eli Manning can go out. There. I think you write him down to outscore Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger had 6 games with 1 touchdown or fewer, and in 3 of those 6 games had 0 touchdowns. That's gross.
If you're looking at where some of the very high-end guys are going, you're thinking, a Cam Newton or Aaron Rodgers. If you're willing to pass on those guys, you can get
Eli's
another very, very high-end receiver, and you can wait 6 more rounds and still get a very high-end quarterback.
Eli's only going to average like 2 or 3 or 4 fewer fantasy points a week than the Cam Newtons of the world. And that's not worth the 6 or 7 round.
And it's almost crazy
difference.
How much difference it is when you think about it.
6 or 7th round difference for 3 or 4 more points? I think the wide receiver I took instead of Cam Newton is going to easily make up that value.
If you look at the receivers going around Cam Newton here, let's see. You're looking at, a Randall Cobb, Sammy Watkins, Jarvis Landry, even a Julian Edelman. If you're saying I can throw one of those guys in as my third receiver, if you go 3 receivers in a row, you get those guys.
Oh, you got to take Landry over Newton. That's crazy. I mean, this guy's a target monster. I mean, they're talking about in practice how they're trying to design plays not to throw him the ball, and he's still catching the football. Like, what? He's just like there. They're like, no, don't throw him the ball. Oh, you still threw it to him. That sounds pretty great for PPR leagues, if you ask me.
All right.
We got
some solid value here. Who else we got?
We got Rashad Jennings. Now, the reports are coming out that Rashad Jennings, they're scrapping that 4 running back system that they used last year.
They're talking 15 carries a game.
15 to 18 carries a game. I mean, if he's going to get that and add you a couple 3 catches, I mean, that's returning RB2 value in the mid-7th round, like every day of the week.
And if you know they're getting rid of that 4-man committee that they had going on, and he gives you the goal line touches.
I mean, he got the goal line touch in preseason the other day. He had like a 3-yard rushing touchdown the other day in preseason. Rashad Jennings is not glitter and glam, people. I mean, that's not going to happen.
But again, he's going so late, and he can be your mid-range RB2.
I mean, I'd take him over. I mean, he's going in the 7th, and these are running backs going in the 5th, and I'm probably going to take him over every single one of these bums. Let's listen. Danny Woodhead, take him over him. I mean, I know he did what he did last year, but I don't know. I think Melvin Gordon's going to take over that ship this year. We got Arian Foster? No way. Rashad Jennings over him every day. Duke Johnson? I just don't trust it. I mean, if they're willing to give Isaiah Crowell the ball after he's posting things about slicing cops' throats, I mean, what needs to be seen here? He sucks. He's posting crazy things. He should probably not play football, but he is. So what are you going to do with that? So I'm going to go ahead and take Rashad Jennings over Duke Johnson.
And Matt Jones, who we talked about earlier, he's in that discussion these guys are not only getting drafted over him, but we're talking 2 rounds drafted.
2 rounds. Two solid rounds.
We're not saying, do I pick this guy or the other?
We're saying these guys are going in the 5th. Rashad Jennings is going in the 7th. And I think the return value, Rashad Jennings is going to return more value in the 5th, but you don't have to take him there.
If we're looking guys right next to him, the running back right next to him, Frank Gore.
And I'm no super genius, but I know enough that Frank Gore is done. He's done. Like, it's over. The ship, it's gone. He's older than me. Like, what needs to be seen? He's not going to get it done.
And Andrew Luck throwing the ball.
He could still
Besides looking bad, they're not going to run the ball anyway.
He could still get 300 carries and still be bad. So what does it matter?
He could have 250 carries for 200 yards on the season.
250 carries for 500 yards and be like, and some reason he got drafted before Rashad Jennings? My boy?
You look at their ceilings. Frank Gore's ceiling? What is his ceiling? Like,
oh my god,
800. Like, his ceiling is like 700-800 yards, maybe like 6-7 touchdowns. That is. I'm talking way up ceiling.
Like that's barely breaking 100 fantasy points with that talk. And 700 for 6. That's 106 fantasy points. That's not getting it done.
And you're looking at Rashad Jennings. If he's the only guy there, gets the red zone touches in this offense.
If he's getting red zone and third down work somehow. I think Rashad Jennings is going to be a top 10 fantasy football player. Top 10 fantasy football back. If he's...
Both want to throw the ball first here. Don't get us wrong.
He's going to be the Justin Forsett of 2 years ago, people.
But they are committed to running the ball in New York. They're saying 15.
Safeties aren't in the box with Odell Beckham floating around outside. That's not the score.
15 carries a game for the guy. You know he's touching the ball. He could rush for 900, 1,000 yards.
I think he could get 1,400 total yards and return like 8 touchdowns for you in the 7th round.
In the 7th round, before you know it, he is a top 10 back halfway through the season. And you're like, where did this guy come from?
If he can somehow reel in like 40 catches, he could easily be a top top 10 fantasy football back.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. Last but not least, well, kind of least, I don't really like him. But if you look at Zach Ertz,
We just dug these stats up, and we couldn't. I didn't even know these happened.
in his last 4 games last year, 3 of those games, Zach Ertz had over 98 yards. I mean, he only scored 2 touchdowns on the entire year, which is pretty gross. But you gotta think that's going up, right?
And even with that said, I mean, he had 75 catches for almost, it was like 850 yards. That's a quiet year because I thought he was doing absolutely nothing out there. I saw the 2 touchdowns, and I said...
Wrote him off. I wrote him off. 2 touchdowns, wrote him off.
And they're bringing a guy in.
He averaged over 20 points in the last 4 weeks of the year I was just talking about.
They're bringing
PPR.
a guy in from KC to help make this guy... They already said they want to make him the primary red zone threat in that offense. I mean, I don't think he can do any worse than 2 touchdowns.
I mean, you gotta give him the over on the 2 touchdowns.
I'm not getting crazy, but I think he can be in the 5-6 range. But still,
I mean, if he can somehow break 7 or 8 for you, and where he's getting drafted,
in that's
a gold mine.
His last 2 weeks alone, I know it was the Eagles and they sucked, and it was week 16, 17, no one cared. But both of those weeks, he had like over 120 yards and racked up, I don't know, it was like 15 catches.
Last 3 weeks, 15, 16, 17, he had 21.8, 23.2, and 24.2 fantasy points in PPR. I mean, that might be tight end 2 or maybe tight end 1 for that stretch.
He's getting drafted around like the 10 to 15th best tight end off the board. And if he gets any red zone threat, if he gets up 7-8 range,
I've still seen him going below people like Eric Ebron, who's not even necessarily looking to play football anytime soon.
He's not even on the field currently.
He's not even looking to play football anytime soon. I don't even like Zach Ertz. But, I mean, you look at it.
He's getting drafted in 9th, 10th round, who could be a mid to low range tight end 1 on the year. If you're willing to wait on a guy,
if you're going to roll the dice on any of these late round tight ends, I mean, you got to look at the corn.
You got to look at Antonio Gates.
And you got to look at Antonio Gates. And I think you got to look at Zach Ertz.
He's going with Barnage, and I'll tell you what, if you ask me if I want Barnage or Zach Ertz, I'm going to take Zach Ertz every time. I can't see Barnage even come remotely close to the year he had last year.
I just can't see it. I just don't see it. I mean, I know the Eagles are bums, the Browns are bums out of Bum City, and everything sucks. But, like, 2 or 3 years ago, like, I was on the Zach Ertz hype train. Like, I was in love with it. And I know it never really paid off for you. But, I mean, that's when he was getting drafted early.
He was getting drafted as
now it's in the value territory.
He was getting drafted as, like, the 5th to 7th best tight end off the board.
That doesn't exist anymore. Now he's back down to reality.
No one really loves him, but you look at how he finished last year, if you dig up these stats...
I mean, if he can still get 75 catches and add like 4 or 5 more touchdowns, that's top 10 tight end.
If he gets the same amount of catches and yards as last year, 75 for 850, and all he has to do is bring his touchdowns up a smidge, I mean, it's not going to be hard, people. He had two touchdowns.
It's not going to be that hard to double down, triple down on those touchdowns. And I mean, if he does that, he's going to be low in tight end 1, low in tight end 1 in the 12-team league.
And again, 10th round.
And he's not getting drafted like he could be that at all.
I like it. I think there's a lot of value there. I think this year, more than any recent year, there's so many deep depth at tight ends that can go in and produce top 5 numbers.
I mean, you know, there's your 3 guys. There's Gronk, there's Reed, there's Olsen, and then there's kind of Delaney Walker who's on that fringe. Then it's a bag of guys. Then it's like 10 guys that are the same.
I mean, anywhere from the 4th best to the 10th best guy. You're looking at, who knows?
It's
maybe
basically who you love and who you don't.
It's like
sometimes you love Travis Kelce, sometimes you don't.
Sometimes you love Julius Thomas.
Sometimes you don't.
If I can't get one of those top 3 tight ends, I'm going to wait because I think I can get tremendous value in the teens and I don't have to pay up for it, and I think they easily can overtake any one of those guys. I think Zach Ertz can outproduce Kelsey. I think Antonio Gates can outproduce Julius Thomas.
I think Antonio Gates can outproduce anybody outside the top 3.
Gates could be top 3.
I mean, that's not insane.
I mean, that's not crazy. And he's getting drafted, I don't even know, 12th?
If Gates is playing football, and I mean, I think if you're looking into late round tight end, I think Gates is clearly like the way to go.
I'm even looking for Gates. I don't even know where Antonio Gates is getting drafted at the 10th or
Mid-10th.
11th.
Mid-10.
This is a guy who was top 3 upside at the position that he plays.
I think top 5. I mean, I don't know. I think those 3 guys at the top are stoned in there. I think they're written in stone that Gronk, barring injury, of course, that Gronk and Reed and Olsen will be your boys. And Delaney Walker, if he gets the targets did last year, he could still be in that top 5. But I think if anyone else is sneaking in, it's Antonio Gates.
I
For
think
sure.
so. I just love the deep depth here at the tight end position. Well, I think that's it for the NFC East here. Once again, subscribe, email us.
Subscribe, please. Like our videos. We appreciate it very much.
tankersfantasyfootball@gmail.com. Email us any questions. We'll get you on the show here. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll catch you next time.
Bye-bye.